I'm joined by Harry Litman from the Talking Feds YouTube channel. Make sure you all subscribe. And Harry Litman was appointed in 1998 as the United States Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania. He was appointed by President Bill Clinton. Now, the Western District of Pennsylvania is the area that encompasses Butler, where the shooting took place at the Trump rally. I want to talk about what it is that we know as of now about this shooter. There were things that were publicly reported in terms of the voter ID. The last time the individual voted, we had, it was a Republican voter ID, voted in the midterms. There were some things about other students and neighbors saying that there were Trump signs at the house where he lived with his family. There was a statement, I think, from the dad that the dad believed the son was at a gun range, but when the dad didn't hear where the son was, suspected that he may be involved in the shooting and then reached out to the police. Harry, what is it that we know right now? And based on your expertise, and just to remind everyone, that's the top federal prosecutor in that district. That was the job you had in 98.
Yeah, and that person's my successor is going to be pretty involved now in the investigation. So it did tell me a few things right away. Butler, 40 miles out, that's a rural district, and it is the case in Pennsylvania that you have a lot of domestic terrorism. The old saw is Pennsylvania is Pittsburgh to the west, Philadelphia to the east, Alabama in between. So when you first hear about the shooting, it seems, wow, I want to see the social media. I want to see the domestic terrorism group that this guy joined. But the next detail, he's from Bethel Park, not a poor rural community. That's basically a Pittsburgh bedroom community. And he's 20 years old. And the FBI is basically giving details that make it clear that they have done their first thing that they're going to do, which is make sure there's not any ongoing risk. So to me, this guy from the start seemed like he might well be, and I think he has turned out to be, that pretty rare phenomenon of just a true lone wolf. A little bit like the guy who shot up the Tree of Life. A guy, he's 20 years old, and I think mental illness I thought would be involved. And sure enough, when the FBI cracks his phone, he is Googling major depressive disorder, but also interestingly, he's Googling where Biden's going to be, where Trump is going to be. He's a guy who I think, for whatever reason, you might think Travis Bickle and Taxi Driver, he was just ready to commit suicide by cop, and it had very little to do with, Trump versus Biden. Few more things we do know about him. He was there a couple times it was a very kind of difficult lying down, sort of bear crawling on the roof. He scoped it out. He knew what he was doing. It looks like he was actually at the rally. He was spotted a couple hours before and a person of interest, and then they lost sight of him, but he had been there and he'd scoped it out. As you say, his father has like a dozen or more guns, and he used his father's AR-15. But the thing that stands out to me from the start, and I think it panned out, is he is a true lone wolf. Let me move over to the other side now. So in the federal government now, right away, the kind of bifurcation occurs where the FBI first shows up and they're in charge of the attempted assassination. That literally means they've opened a file, and now Merrick Garland clears his schedule. He's going to be in charge of this. I saw it happen when I was there with Oklahoma City. He's going to, the FBI is now just working for him, as is the ATF, as is my old office, and they're going to get to the bottom of it. And I think they will. Not too many moving parts. So let's go over to the other side, Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the Secret Service, and they are in a world of hurt. Western Pennsylvania, where I was U.S. attorney, is a big political hotbed. So candidates are always coming through there. And I know how it works, including the process of scoping out the perimeter before someone comes to town, a big political figure. And there's been a little bit of confusion in the coverage. There's the perimeter, as in the people who will be in the actual rally, go through magnetometers, etc. Then there's the real perimeter, and that is 100% about who and where are their lines of sight on the speaker. You go out there, somebody stands where Trump is going to be, and you go everywhere. And it is, from the standpoint of the Secret Service, mind-blowing that this kid had a 150-yard open shot line of sight on the president. 150 yards, and with today's technology, not very far at all. Oswald was about 100 for comparison, but that was 1963. So they knew from the start it was going to be a real shit show for them. And sure enough, there's been a couple congressional briefings, but it's not working. McConnell and others have called for the resignation of the head of the Secret Service, and it's becoming a political football. It'll stay that way. But even that aside, on the merits, I'm just here to tell you, as will anybody in law enforcement, what? 150-yard open line of sight? How in the world did that happen? And on that side of things, it's a kind of a historic black eye and snafu.
Harry, let's talk about, as the U.S. Attorney for the District in Western Pennsylvania, when you said you'd open up a file, if this was on your desk, walk us through the steps of what that actually means and what you would be doing leading that office so people understand.
Yeah, it's a really important point. It's not a casual thing. So when the head of the FBI, by the way, did you notice no Secret Service at that press conference, steps up and says there's an attempted assassination, that means sometimes you do it with the U.S. Attorney, but at the time, the FBI wanted to step up. And that's also a little bit characteristic of the sort of insider conduct of the different agencies here. But that means they opened a file and it said attempted assassination with the section number. And that is the reason. I mean, you can ask, why is Merrick Garland in charge, and why has he galvanized and delegated the FBI, the ATF, and my old office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, to look into this? They're not going to bring charges, right? The perpetrator they know is dead, but there's a file. And so it's perfectly not just appropriate, but conventional that you will sometimes do an investigation before you will close a file. And so they have the kind of legal lookout to answer questions like, where was he? How did he prepare? The number one big question that they really haven't answered yet, and I'm not sure there's going to be a good answer to, because as you've surmised, and as have I think we have just a really mentally ill 20-year-old man. But what is the motive? All the things you do if you were building a case, that is what they're doing now, even though, of course, it's not a case. It's rather an investigation of what happened. But that's technically, it is all the moves, all the lines of authority, all the kinds of conclusions you draw before bringing a case, they're going to draw before closing that folder. That's not a casual thing to have in the Department of Justice and and a prosecutorial system. There's an open file now, attempted assassination, and they'll look into it before they close it. And who's really in charge of it? Totally clear. Merrick Garland. He had a whole schedule that he cleared his deck, and I've seen him do this. It's going to be intense. He'll leave no stone unturned. But I think they'll figure it out. There aren't that many moving parts here. I think they're going to get to the bottom of it, except possibly they'll never nail completely motive, because we have, a really mentally ill perpetrator and who can really say precisely why. But one more quick point, not a spur of the moment decision. Went out there to scope it out a couple times, got his father's gun, did do a couple things on social media, nowhere near what you normally see, but on a gaming site. He's a gamer. He wrote something like, "This will be my premiere." And there are now some foreign accounts involving games that they're trying to subpoena. So we'll learn a little bit more. but he is not the first thing that I thought when I heard Butler, which is a rural, fairly poor county, part of some big domestic terrorism group, and that he got, kind of just entranced by. He's a true lone wolf.
Harry, anything in terms of investigation, looking at the family, the parents, the access to these guns? Some reporting suggested that the father, one of the initial reactions at least was that my son? Which is, a strange thing to react that way to. How would that be looked into from the perspective of a negligent homicide, because there was a victim who was actually shot and killed there, the firefighter, right. Corey Comparatori. Do you think that people will be at least looking into that?
Yeah, but point number one, not a federal offense, either civil or criminal. But we've seen this now a couple times where you can imagine a lawsuit brought by that family against the father. And what's the recent case in which the act just giving too casual access? I mean, really, what the hell is this guy doing? What is the exact circumstances that his 20-year-old, obviously mentally ill son got his hands on, and more than once, because we know he did a little practicing on this AR-15. That's going to be part of it too, but not part of the federal investigation, and not, I think, even sort of state negligent manslaughter, because he's dead now. But could the father get sued? Yeah, he could. An interesting thing, you also will sometimes have in these events the sobbing parents explaining we never knew. This guy from the start has fully cooperated. We're given to know with the FBI, but not word one. This is one of these situations where his world is instantly turned upside down. And as you suggest, Ben, they're going to neighbors, they're going to teachers. You've heard accounts of classmates. Was he bullied? Was he not? He seems to be a fairly, to outward appearances, even-tempered, pretty good student. One wins a math and science prize, etc. But all of that they're going to plumb the depths of. They sort of already are plumbing the depths of, and of course that'll include family.
Well, Harry, we appreciate your insight. I mean, it's not always we get to have someone who was the United States Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania, that area, who would be in charge of investigations like this. Yeah. So thanks for sharing it. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Harry's YouTube channel. It's picking up subscribers super quickly. I mean, you're on this growth to 500,000 subs right now. So go search Talking Feds YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Harry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.